I'm a firm believer of if you want to increase your position in life, one of the fastest, best ways to do that is just change the people you're hanging out with.
Welcome to the Lendsetter Show, the show that blends the art of sales, the science of success, and the strategies of real experts in the mortgage and sales industries to help you grow your client base, increase your revenue, and get in control of your life. I'm your host, Preston Schmidley. Kick back, enjoy the episode, and don't forget to subscribe. What's going on, friends? Preston here with the Lendsetter Show. I am really excited for this episode. I have a friend of mine in the industry, one of the members within our program here at Good Vibe Squad. We got Austin Hines of Skyway Financial. This is a brokerage he started, and he's done direct consumer marketing for a while now, and it's been cool to be able to work with him and watch his growth and his expansion, not just as a broker but as an entrepreneur. Austin, why don't you, before we dive into, I know we have a lot to talk about because we talk decently often, but why don't you just paint a picture of kind of your journey through the mortgage industry up to this point to kick off the call?
Yeah, man, absolutely. First of all, thanks for inviting me on to talk on your podcast.
For sure.
Definitely appreciate the opportunity. And, just to kind of tell you a little bit about me specifically. So I've been in the industry going on about 7 years now. Started out in consumer direct at one of the top mortgage companies in the nation. Just hitting the phone, smiling and dialing, man, and worked my way through the system. Was vice president of the largest veteran-owned bank in the United States for a while, for about 5 years. And after that, realized that was never going to be my baby. I have an entrepreneurial spirit about me, so branched out, started my own thing, and here we stand, man. Skyway Financial, doing big stuff.
What led you to take that leap?
Well, at the end of the day, I'd worked my way up the corporate ladder to a point where I was at a fork in the road on the direction that I wanted to go. The market was shifting at the time. We were in a refinance boom, but I felt like we were about 6 months away from a very serious shift. And at the point where I had to go to management to chat about how I had plans to kind of change up my marketing strategy, the fact that I had to go and ask for approval and jump through those hoops to ultimately get shot down on my ideas led me to realize, well, this is never going to be my baby. I need to step outside my comfort zone and do something on my own. And thankfully I did, because the market shifted very quickly into not a refinance boom anymore. And a lot of the people that were at the place that I worked are no longer there, or have completely gotten out of the industry, because I don't want to talk smack or anything like that, but I feel like one of the biggest benefits of being a broker versus working at a large place is your ability to adapt to tough markets. You kill what you eat. And that's what I had the privilege of doing, was getting kind of a 6-month start on a really tough market. And here we are today. So
that's awesome. What do you feel are some of the, I know that you are always trying to find new ways to grow your business. What do you feel are some of the things that you would define as strengths within your brokerage?
Strengths, willingness to try new things. Even GVS at one point was, we saw your ads on Facebook, and it was an attention grabber for us, but it was outside our comfort zone at the time. And I told my wife, I was like, you've got to be willing to branch out and try different stuff in a tough market. And ultimately kind of having that willingness to adapt has been what's kept us alive, that and also really focusing on relationships with our clients. Most of my clients we stay in touch with on a regular basis with, and I would say I have a lot of friendships out of, clients that we've had in the past. So yeah, I would say those two things.
One of the questions that all leads me to is I'd be curious about what are some lessons you feel that you had the unique privilege of learning from doing consumer direct?
Okay, so lessons that I've learned from consumer direct. Consumer direct,
Or how do you feel consumer direct better set you up for success now as a broker?
that's actually a really good question. I actually think that consumer direct was, for me, and still is, the backbone of our business model. When someone asks me Skyway Financial's business model, I say we're a retail consumer direct hybrid, where most of our business is, built around referrals, but we also buy a lot of leads that lead to those referrals.
Sure.
So in the original consumer direct business model, it's only buying leads and working those. And while I was at the companies that I worked at, they helped me build a strategy. Like, we would time block, we would, call our leads multiple times, 3-5 times a day, really hit the phones hard, follow up. I think a lot of people who are only in the retail model don't understand how important it is to really dive in and not be afraid to call people 3 times a day, even if that feels excessive. The reality is consumers a lot of times are getting blown up to the point where even if you call 3 times a day, there's so many other people calling that they don't even recognize your number half the time. So you're not going to offend somebody by calling. And if you are offending them, guess what? They're going to pick up and tell you, hey, cut it out, So, to loop back to what you said, consumer direct is really the backbone to our business model. It's something that I don't think that I would have been as strong of a loan officer had I not had that training. And I'm super thankful for the opportunity that I had to be exposed to that.
Austin, did you have any door-to-door sales experience in your life?
Did I? No, I didn't. But I will say that for me, I had a version of that where basically we were given county tax records, which is essentially like calling out of the phone book.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's like door-to-door sales.
Yeah, I mean, it's a form of it. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. And the reason I was asking is I've talked to a handful of people that I felt were pretty successful and they've done some cool things in the industry. And one of the threads was door-to-door sales, right? But I would even make, if you're used to a boiler room or some kind of a call center-esque where you're, calling public data like that, that's that's a version of it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I'm trying to refrain from mentioning specific businesses, but I can tell you, like, when I walked in my first day, it was cubicle-like. We walked in, everybody was on the phone, smiling and dialing, always be closing. We had morning meetings. People literally, like, every single month we had the opportunity to win. The top 10 commission checks were posted publicly for everybody to see it. And also, at the end of the day, that was motivation for me to get after it. So
yeah,
when somebody's publicly putting your numbers in front of somebody, like,
yeah, show up.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. I think that's an interesting concept. Maybe we should do that at GVS and just say everybody's got to put their numbers up.
That's interesting. I would. Yeah, I support it, man. I support it. It's kind of like not culturally acceptable to some degree anymore, like everybody's a winner type mentality. But in a tough market like this, like, fuck all that, dude. Like, the reality is we need to push ourselves. And the best way to do that is to be public about where you stand in your sphere of influence.
Yeah.
And consumer direct was that model. I don't think that retail is. So anybody who's stepping into what I would call the GVS hybrid model, because it's both of those things. GVS is both retail because you're building referrals, but it's also consumer direct because you're actually purchasing leads through that avenue as well.
It's an interesting perspective. I haven't heard it worded that way. What I know that you're working our system, obviously. What are some other things you're doing to attract business? I mean, at what point? I guess let me get more tactical on that. At what point in the relationship with the prospect are you using them as leverage to get real estate agents? Like, what's your workflow there? Because it sounds like you're really trying to kind of get this infinity loop between the two worlds, where they feed each other. And I'm just curious, kind of where do they meet?
Right. So for me, it's always been the component of reverse engineering success. To me, the most definitive business model is to have realtors or a referral network that is going to feed you forever and always. And in order to maintain that, the only way is to offer some sort of reciprocity between the two of you. And so that's one of the reasons why I sought out the lead buy that I did, was because I knew specifically for purchasers, it was going to be a requirement to cut out a lot of riffraff. Nobody wants to go for coffee, bro. Like that business model is dead. It's funny. One of the pitches that I have for realtors right off the bat is I just call and I'm like, hey, my name is Austin Hines. I work with Skyway Financial. I'm actually the owner, and we specifically reach out to local realtors to network with them. This is not a marketing ploy or anything like that. What I'm looking for is someone to build a relationship with that's willing to reciprocate. So to answer your question, it's literally in my initial pitch, like, hey, I'm reaching out to you to build a relationship. I want to know if you're going to reciprocate. And if they don't have those conversations, man, if it's like, oh, well, click, dude, I'm on to the next person,
That makes sense. What are some pieces of advice from your path, from your experience, that you feel, right now we're in an interesting market, right? As we're recording this in April, so I know that it's an interesting time for a lot of people, and one of the things I've observed is, because I've had a few conversations as of lately, and periodically, every now and then, somebody will say that they feel like lead quality has gone down. I always like to look at things formulaically, because it's like fundamentally, there's been very, very little changes to our process in a way that would affect lead quality. There's been insufficient changes to the platforms to really validate that statement. And so, when I was looking at it, I was like, well, there's an increased amount of friction to get somebody from initial, point of interest, they opted in to become a lead, all the way to a closed and funded loan, right? It's like, I've actually seen a lot of people that are getting to the application, but it's the distance between the application and the closed and funded loan seems to be the challenge, right? And so I guess formulaically speaking, it has felt to me like what the perception is lead quality has gone down, but really difficulty of the game has gone up, right? And so I'd be curious about some advice that you might have for loan officers during a market like this.
Sure. So, first of all, I don't think that lead quality has gone down. There's specifically some inventory issues that I think we can address quickly to kind of maybe help alleviate some of the problems that we have. So if we look at the last time that we were at the absolute bottom of the market, was February of 2012. There are two reasons that the market crashed. The first was there wasn't enough regulation on who could qualify for a mortgage. It's pretty well known that if you could fog a mirror, you could get a mortgage at that time. The other issue was there was massive amounts of inventory. At the very bottom of the market, you had 2.4 million listings on the market. Today, as of, I think it was last month, no, I'm sorry, this was 2 weeks ago, I pulled these facts. It was right at 563,000 active listings. So
compared to 2.4.
2.4.
Wow.
You're talking, what was it, like 25%? Whatever.
Not even that, 20%. Less than 20%. Or a little bit more than 20%. Yeah.
You know, first of all, when people start talking about, oh, well, the market's changed, you know, I don't think as far as like, so applications have gone down, but that's simply because we have an inventory issue. So I don't think that the market has gotten, you know, lead quality hasn't gone down. We just have massive inventory issues at the moment. So I think the reality is you have really high quality candidates. It's just a matter of how are you going to be creative with your realtor referrals and getting those people in homes. I feel like I went a long way around to kind of answer that question, but supply and demand is there, man. And we see it every time, you know, I have interest rates come down, you know, a quarter to a half point. It seems like everybody's jumping at the gun to get in the house. But there's still a lot of opportunity out there, man. Successful people will always find a way.
Yeah.
In fact, I kind of wanted to highlight in a call that you were on the other day, one of your masterminds, I think you read us a text that you got on a question, and he said specifically, you know, questions. What was the quote? You're gonna have to edit some of this specifically.
So you're talking about from the top producer?
The one that you read about top producers don't say those kind of things.
Yeah, well, so the essentially I said, I just pulled it up. I said, this is actually Amir Saeed. He's really, really nice, humble guy. We started working with his business partner, and I've spent a decent amount of time talking with both of them over the last few weeks. And he did 150 million last year, which I think, you know, if there's a year to do 150 million and make it impressive, it was last year, you know.
Right.
And so he said, or I said, you know, hey, bro, if you're online, I got a question for you. I'm doing my weekly peak performers call today. And you know, I'm addressing some perspective that's come from some clients who are saying some version of, you know, people in California or other high competition state who are financially able to buy a house aren't on Facebook, right? Or some other version of paid traffic sucks. I'm handling this on the call, but I'd be curious about, from your perspective, what do you feel are some of the main drivers you would attribute to your success, regardless of the market conditions and regardless of the economy? And I felt like I was able to say that, and he was able to answer it because he did do 150 million regardless of market conditions and regardless of the economy during what I think we could both define now as a recession and what we would both define as less than great market conditions compared to 2020, 2021, you know. And so he definitely, I mean, for all intents and purposes, if you're doing 9 figures during a year like last year where everybody else is practically saying that it's hard to even be in the business at all, you know, I mean, that's like the mortgage equivalent of defying gravity, you know. And so his response was, hey, bro, great question. Top performers never talk like that. They'd rather understand that they have, that business is all about who can pivot, adjust, and adapt the best. And so I was like, all right, man, you know, I knew it was a headspace game, but you know, to hear that from him was good.
Dude, I remember when I got in the industry. This was in 2016. This was before we knew that Trump was going to get elected. There was a lot of talk about, you know, what interest rates we're going to do. And for whatever reason, people in my office at the time were talking about how interest rates were going to go up. And one of my mentors at the time, I went to him and I was like, bro, you know, I've got a baby on the way. Like, what's going to happen? Like, are we going to make it through this? And he said, what are you talking about? This is the time that your dreams will be made. And that stuck with me. He was like, the reality is high interest rates are a great opportunity because it's going to weed out a lot of the bullshit. It's going to give you an opportunity to be successful because there's going to be a lot of fallout, man. Like right before this meeting, it's funny. My wife actually sent me a text of somebody who's adding us on LinkedIn, and they are no longer a loan officer. It used to be someone that I would consider competition, but Am I getting muted again?
No, you're good.
Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. She's calling me back. Sorry.
If you got to take it, bro, take it. We can.
I'm gonna turn my phone off.
Look at you. New standards and boundaries.
Trying, man. She's gonna be pissed though. I know she's gonna be pissed. She's gonna be so mad. What's crazy is like, so hopefully this will help highlight. I'm gonna try and say this the right way, and maybe we can capture it appropriately. She is my top producer at the moment. She's closing probably 3 to 5 loans a month with me. She just got a new build contract that could be an absolute game changer, not only for her life, but also for mine. And all of that came from a lead that I bought a year and a half ago that I gave to someone else. I gave to her broker, and her broker 6 months later introduced me to her. And that has now led to this relationship that will end up being 6-7 figure relationship, you know? So the relationship that was built off of a lead that I bought at the time, I mean, I didn't even get any reciprocity off of that from the broker for, I want to say it was like 6 months. Like I didn't even hear from him. You know, like I would reach out and say, hey, how are you? But I'd get the voicemail or it'd be like a real short text back. But now, like, I mean, our kids, when I go in town, our kids play together, and it's developed into this relationship that's so much bigger. And all of that was because of this hybrid consumer direct retail business model. You know? So to me, what's special again is the mixture of the two of those together. I think that's how people are going to be successful in this market is, you know, being able to reciprocate business and build long-lasting relationships with people.
I agree. What is some of the biggest, I know you like to invest in education for yourself and stuff like that. What are some of, I guess, things or lessons you've received from mentorship in the last year or so? Some things that have helped transform you and either as a, you know, business owner, as the owner of the brokerage, or as an originator.
Investing in myself, I feel like this is going to be a really vague answer, but investing in myself in whatever capacity that is, whether that's getting a personal trainer, getting a dietitian, getting a mindset coach, things like that just go so far in helping you to achieve your goals. You know, one of the biggest things that I've invested in here recently has been mortgage education, specifically on accessing different resources out there. I'm not going to shout out any specific companies on this, I guess, unless you really want me to.
You're welcome to. I mean, if you think it's something that could be insightful or helpful to another originator, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just stick with some of the basics, man. Like just setting yourself up for success in the morning by reading the news. You know, Housing Wire, MBS Highway, places like that just offer a lot of really strong tools to really help lessen the learning curve on where the industry kind of stands. Because if you just wake up every morning and plug in and don't offer some sort of value when you get on the phone to your clients, they're not going to be bought in, man. So it's very important that you stay up to date with industry changes and, you know, make sure that you're reading, well, whatever kind of content you can really get your hands on, because all of that helps really put an edge over you versus the competition.
Sure, that makes sense. I don't know if you noticed, but I put the shirt on for you, by the way. You would wanted to
the mastermind shirt.
Yeah, you wanted
what does it say on the bottom? Can you see it? Mastermind in Paradise. Can you tell us a little bit about that, man? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, man, it was fun. So first of all, it's part of the Inner Circle, which is Russell Brunson's mastermind. The co-founder of ClickFunnels, and we've been. I mean, we've used, obviously, as a marketing agency, ClickFunnels since. I mean, it's been like a long time, like 7-ish years. And I mean, our business, as far as how we attract leads for ourselves, it's heavily built on that. And so I've always had a great appreciation. What's actually cool about this to me is, and I'll actually give a plug on this because we're not. This is the actual copy of it. So when I was at the Plasma Center twice a week, this was one of the books that I would read all the time. And, I was there for about 90 minutes minimum each time. And so this thing has a ton of notes and folded pages and all kinds of stuff. But this, this book really changed my life, and it's just packed full of, if you're trying to understand marketing, first of all, .com Secrets by Russell Brunson is absolutely phenomenal. Amazing resource. But, it was kind of a full circle moment even to be in the Inner Circle because, to finally be running in the pack with the guy that I was at the very beginning of it all, at my lowest point, and I was trying to learn from him, from the only resource of his I could afford, which was this book, and then eventually to in the end be rocking together. That to me is just a really cool full circle moment, right? So I really enjoy those events. The other reason I enjoy it is, I think this is a lesson for most loan officers too, is if you want to grow your business, you should stop taking all your information in from mortgage specific things. Like, that's important to be relevant, right? And to be up on the current things. But if we're talking marketing trends, marketing tactics, you should see what's happening in a wide variety of industries, right? And so the cool thing about the Inner Circle is it provides exposure to a lot of other entrepreneurs that, are doing anywhere between like 3, sometimes a little below that, but usually around 3 million to 500 million in annual revenue. And so it's like, I'm a firm believer of, if you want to increase your position in life, one of the best ways to do that is just change the people you're hanging out with. I think most of us have relationships we tolerate or that we spend a lot of time on that don't serve us, or don't serve our higher purpose. And so, that was probably when I was on the come up, and I was on the tail end of the Plasma Center. I was like driving to masterminds because I couldn't afford to fly. I remember I hung out with this pack of insurance brokers out in Utah. This is like summer of 2017. And I had just, started doing all the marketing that I was selling to real estate agents, insurance agents. And I was sitting in this room with these guys, and I was going to talk about Facebook lead generation because back in 2017, it was the Wild West of Facebook lead gen. So they were blown away by everything I had to talk about. And I talked for we were supposed to have 30 minutes each. I ended up going for like 2.5 hours because they kept asking questions. And it was really cool because it was the first time I was ever exposed to really wealthy people. And I was so impressed by the way they carried themselves. And they were just dudes in cargo shorts and flip-flops. And, some had polos, some had just T-shirts. And I was just like, and granted, it's summer in Utah in a cabin. So yes, obviously we're kicking it. But it was the first interaction I had with people of what I would consider wealth or higher, kind of a life situation. And I just spent the weekend observing them because I was like, dude, I want to be like them. I want to be more like them, right? I don't want to be them specifically, but there were things that I definitely had to learn from them. And so that actually really transformed kind of my perspective on relationships. And so I was driving back from that trip, and I remember just processing how much I was going to start focusing on the relationships in my life, because I knew that I would be willing to be the best student in the room. I knew that I'd be willing to do the work. I knew I'd be willing to have the late nights, the early mornings, the long weekends. I was willing to do all of that. It's actually normal for me at this point. Like I when I'm not doing it, I'm uncomfortable, which is a whole separate thing I got to work through. But it's like there was the relationship part of it was huge to my ability to grow. And so now, at this mastermind, it feels honestly like we're collapsing decades into days. Things that if I tried to do it without that proximity, without that access to people who have gone the distance, who have done what I want to do or a version of it, and have insights, and they can help me avoid the pitfalls and the mistakes, and I can learn from their life and gain that wisdom without the hardship to acquire the wisdom. That's been transformative. So there was, we forged a lot of friendships, in the last few weeks. And, it also honestly helped us kind of transform our perspective on our business, because we used to want to grow a little bit, but now it's like, we got a whole new fresh perspective on where we want to take this business, how we want to help the mortgage industry. And I'm really excited to see what we do, because because we had like 3 weeks of almost back-to-back masterminding. We had our Stake of the Union mastermind, which is a really intimate mastermind of agency owners in different industries, but all heavily done for you services like what we do. And then we went to meet and hang out with for a day Dan Kennedy, who, that's been a really cool relationship to start to foster. And he just FedExed me a package today that I've been chomping at the bit to go through, of just a bunch of cool stuff that he sent. And then, and then we literally went from Stake of the Union to Dan Kennedy. I had 1 day back home, and then we went to Mexico to hang out with Russell and his pack. So, it was empowering, man, and, I'm very grateful for that. I legit, I took, I don't know, maybe 50 pages of notes, maybe more, but like I had so many insights that both personally and professionally that I think are going to change my life over the next 12 months. But I don't know that I've had this much clarity in business ever, which is an empowering feeling.
So, I have 2 questions off of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the first of all would be coming off the trip, like what you're talking about. I understand what you're talking about. You almost have this high coming off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just feel focused, and you feel like you have clarity on the path that you want to go towards. Having been there before, what happens for me a lot of times is I end up coming home to my ordinary life.
Yeah.
Things end up changing that over like a month or 6 months or whatever it is. Like it slowly kind of like erodes away. I guess a good question for me to ask is, when you've got that feeling, how do you hold on to it?
That's a good question. So I've always been intentional after I'm done masterminding. So like, for instance, I keep every fax I get from Dan Kennedy, right? Because that's how you got to communicate with him, unless he mails you stuff. So I actually go through and reread them periodically, just because it's like, okay, where are we at, right? This ain't like an email thread, I don't remember what we talked about 13 faxes ago, so I keep an inventory of it chronologically, just in case. So I think the biggest thing is I actually, for like the next month or two, so I've always been a bad student. So let's just talk about that for a second. So, let me rephrase this. In the traditional setting, I've been a bad student. I'm not great at the way in which public education teaches. That's not a great way of me assimilating information. I actually have to just beat the fucking information into my head, right? It's like, I can't just be there, hear it, and be like, oh, cool, let's go. It's like that inspires me, right? Because there's a visionary part of me that gets all riled up and ready to attack. But what I'll do for like the next 1 to 2 months from that is I will actually just replay all the tape. So like I recorded some mini sessions that I found empowering. We recorded the entire day with Dan. So like I'll actually reconsume it. And it's kind of like peeling the layers off, because it's like until I can really lead that conversation from a place of deep understanding, I don't move forward. And so that's just something I do, is I will literally replay it to the point where I can actually talk about it without the need to look at it and reflect on it. And so I think that that's one of the things that helps me assimilate the information and stay true to the goals that I set, so that I don't, because you're right. If you're not intentional with it, it's so easy to get sucked back and revert to ordinary life. And then, these things become kind of like pipe dreams. Right. And it's like, I think that the commitment to the idea is important. And so, like I've read my notes probably, I don't know, 10 times now, maybe. I mean, and I haven't been back a week. And, I also, what I do is when I look back at my notes, the first thing, when I'm doing my first pass, I actually separate everything that's a to-do, like an actionable thing that I wrote down, where, because when somebody talks about a book, one of the things that I've learned in life is if you want to really shortcut, and I don't believe in shortcuts in the conventional sense, but if you're trying to kind of go straight to the source, if you will, I'm always looking for book recommendations. And what I found is, it's like, yeah, it's one thing to study Russell Brunson, and I've done that. I've read all of his books a number of times. However, whenever he recommends a book, I want to know what he knows, right? So when somebody I look up to, right, recommends a book, I buy it and I just dive in, because it's like there's that was part of what made them, right? And so I look at it honestly like a recipe of information, right? It's like, Russell Brunson, for instance, is an example, or he is the output recipe of a little bit of Dan Kennedy here, a little bit of Ben Settle here, a little bit of, Andre Chaperone, a little. So it's like you take all these like OG marketers, and it's like he talks about them. Well, most people stop at Russell Brunson. For me, I go, no. I want to know about Andre. I want to know about Ben Settle. I want to know about Dan. I want to know. And so like I go to that's like, where did they learn their stuff from, right? And I'm interested where Dan Kennedy learned his stuff from. Like that was one of my favorite parts, bro. Like being in his house, in his basement, it's like a library. And I literally took pictures of every book he had that was visible. And I plan on getting as many of them as I can, reading as many of them as I can, so that I can, to the best of my ability, download his knowledge into my head. And so that's just kind of a way I live. So when I come back from a mastermind, I look through all my notes, I write down all the actionable stuff. If I got to buy stuff, usually books, or if there's something that I got to do in the upcoming weeks, I write that down, and then I Sharpie it off of my notes, so that my notes over time kind of become this, shrinking list of things I need to attack until I feel like they're either already implemented or irrelevant now.
Yeah. So basically, like I have a very set pitch on the way that I explain, how an appraisal will be charged to a borrower, and a borrower's coming back and saying that we didn't tell them that they would have to pay for an appraisal, which, like, when you, like, I have a system in place of things that I say in a certain order, and that's like one of the things that I always say. And so I just relay that to her, just to give her some confidence, and the fact that was relayed. So it's no big deal. She, it was just an expensive appraisal. It was like $800-900, and the client wants to know what it's for. So just
appraisals are up to $800-900 now.
For that, well, it's a duplex. It's a duplex, so it's a little bit more pricey. And also, like, you're paying for priority. So it was a little bit more expensive because we wanted to get it done quickly. So
it makes sense.
But edit that part out for me. I'm not trying to talk about it. But yeah.
So I had another question.
Yeah, man. So I wrote down here specifically, in chatting about inner circle, building up your inner circle. I think the famous saying is you're the sum of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. For those of us that are trying to surround ourselves with better people, can you give us some of the qualities that you look for in the inner circle relationships that you're trying to build?
That's a great question. So, what I look for when I'm trying to figure out who I want to put myself around, right? Because dude, this is the thing that I've realized is it's crowded at the bottom. And that's good reason, right? The Pareto distribution is at play in any hierarchy, financial, social, otherwise, right? And so it's like that whole idea of there's the 1%, and then below them is the 4%, and then below them is the 15%, and then below them is the rest of the 80%, right? And so part of that is I really only want to play with the 1 or the 4%, and mostly the 1, but I got to get there. So I'll take the 4%, right? I want the top 5% of people in my life. And, what I've realized through that is it affords you, if you're willing to accept that and go, okay, that's going to be my standard. First of all, not everybody that's been in your life has a seat in that reality, right? And so that's the important thing, is you have to recognize that sometimes people grow apart, and that's okay. And that doesn't mean you don't love them. It just means that you have to learn to love them from a distance. And I think that that's a very real thing that some people struggle with, is making room in their life for that growth to happen. And sometimes that happens through the creating space between people. So, I'm really intentional and specific. I actually have what's called a Dream 100, and I think everybody should, right? So by Dream 100, I mean, I've documented, I'm actually up to like 160 people now, but I've documented, I started looking for 100 people that I want in my life. Just, it could be for whatever reason, right? Russell's on there, right? We used that example earlier. Well, Russell was on there. I was intentional. I knew I wanted to have him in my life at some capacity, right? We ain't best buds. I think we get along quite well. He's much more introverted than I am in just regular conversations, which is an interesting situation, because he's one of my favorite stage presenters. However, it's like you put him on a one-on-one conversation and he's like, it's kind of an interesting dynamic. So it's obviously a trained skill of his to be able to speak publicly, but I'm on a basis where we can shoot Loom videos back and forth, and we've done that periodically. And I mean, that's priceless, to be able to have those kind of relationships. And so, I think part of it is starting by identify, who do you actually want in your life, right? And if you can't answer that, which should communicate something about the lack of clarity, but if you can't identify that, then I think it's about zooming out a little bit more and going, what are the traits of those people, right? Because it's like the traits that I look for are different than the traits that you look for. And honestly, the traits I look for now are different than the traits I look for last year, which will be different than the traits I look for next year, because I don't plan on staying static or linear within that either, right? So I'm constantly, like, part of what drives me is I'm always asking myself what future Preston would think of what I'm doing. Right. So if you put yourself in that lens and go, okay, well, what would Austin of a year from now want from me today? Which is it actually, to be funny about it, but it's true. Earlier today, I've been on meetings and calls and stuff all day, and so I had a quick little break. I ran downstairs and I realized I didn't have any of my meals that I normally have, and I didn't even have English muffins, which are like my backup, because I could just, throw some cream cheese on those bad boys, and I got me some little cream cheese sliders, I didn't have nothing. And I remember saying out loud, damn it, I didn't do future Preston any favors today. and but it's actually like, that's the lens I look through. It's like, sometimes I'll be like, you know what, I'm gonna need these for Friday, right? And so I'm trying to plant seeds today, every day, for what, it's kind of like squirrels, man. They bury the nuts knowing that one day they got to eat, right? And so I just kind of look at my own life that way. And so I look at relationships that way as well, as like, I am going to need different things in the future than I am today. And I try to proactively flesh out what that will be, or my best anticipation of what that will be. And I started to realize, when you ask better questions, you get better answers, right? So it's like, if I'm looking out for what Preston of a year from now demands of me, I'm going to rise up more today than if I just say, what do I need to do today? What do I need to do today is a very singular thing, right? But when you're thinking about more of a legacy perspective of, no, what does the future demand of me today? It's different, because I have to not just do today for today's sake. I have to do today so that when I look back on my Facebook memories, I'm proud of what I see, right? So, and that's the lens I look at all of this through. And so even relationships, right? So I have like my Dream 100, and I just use that as a basis. Sometimes I add people to it, and other times I just pull it up and I go, who can I throw something out into the universe towards this week, right? And I mean, honestly, through that, I've made friendships with Jason Frazier, Barry Habib, Christine Beckwith, Russell, Mark Joyner, Dan Kennedy. I mean, there's so many people, man, that like, just because I've identified that I want to learn from them more and I want to grow with them. I think that's the first part, is being specific, right? And then the second part is having the balls to do it, right? Having the gall, whatever you want to say, to keep this gender fluid. You know, you got to have whatever that is, the gusto, you know, just the heart to be willing to take that risk of being shot down or rejected or whatever. And, you know, I've often found that I'm pretty well received as long as I approach it respectfully. I think you and I were talking about this recently. There was a speaker at Mastermind in Paradise named Pedro Adeo, and dude does very well. Very successful guy. But what attracted me to him was not his success. It was I'd never seen him before. He spoke at which I'm kind of surprised I haven't, because he's quite well known in this circle. But before Mastermind in Paradise, I hadn't really known him at all. If you would have said the name, I would have been like, I don't know, right? The way he took the stage, just the way he carried himself, and like he had this aura of what I would define as a very healthy version of masculinity, right? And that's something that I was rather independent in my earlier years. And so my dad and I had some distance between us because I was going through a lot of shit in my youth, and I was making a bunch of dumb decisions. And I'm the type of person I got to learn for myself, right? Like, it's like, you can tell me all you want. I got to get punched in the mouth to realize what hurts. You know, that's just who I am. And so, I don't want to say I was raised by wolves, because I don't feel like that gives enough praise to my parents. It's not like I was abandoned or anything. But like, I spent a lot of time in my youth by myself. And so, you know, I was always searching, especially through the struggles, for any sign of what I would consider healthy and positive masculinity that I could find. And so, we were actually at the Cancun airport. My flight had been pushed back a little bit. And so I go up to Starbucks, and I'm hanging out with this chick that I met at the Mastermind, who we just sparked up some conversation, and we were going to get Starbucks together and just talk about business and stuff. And then I saw Pedro was like 5 people in front of me in line. And so I was like, excuse me, I'll be right back. I just got to talk to somebody. And so I just went up and I introduced myself, and I said, hey, Pedro, first of all, loved the speech that you had. And, you know, when you were up there, you carried yourself in a way that I don't know exactly how to define the energy, but you feel like somebody that I have things to learn from, that I need to get mentored by. And I don't know what that looks like. And even if you have the options, if you have courses, I'll buy them. If you sell time, I'll buy it. I'll pay for whatever. I just want to be able to observe you more, because you exude the sense of masculinity that I hope to carry for my kid forward in my life. And I just feel like I need time around you, you know. And I was just honest. Like, that was literally what I felt. And I felt like if I didn't say it, I would live in regret. And so we talked for like the next hour. It was a really good conversation. We just walked around the airport. We went to get his wife Starbucks, brought it back. She didn't like it. We walked all the way back, tried to get her a different Starbucks. Then she said she didn't want it. So then we walked back. It was great. I'm like, dude, we could get her 3 Starbucks. I don't care. This is the best ROI on coffee I've ever had, you know? And, so it was just a really cool experience, man. And I think it's a testament to that, you know, once you identify that Dream 100, once you identify somebody, it's like, I think too many people don't take the risk of getting rejected, or whatever. And it's like, dude, once I know that that's where we're at, I'm all in. And it's not just that I want from you, how can I help? You know, it's like, I want to help. I want to be somebody that my Dream 100, when they're talking to their people, goes, yeah, man, you know, when I was it could be whatever, but hopefully it's some version of, you know, when we were setting up our new campaigns and stuff, I talked to Presley, he gave me these ideas and inspirations for ideas. Yeah, I wouldn't have done without him. Like, I want to be able to provide so much value to my Dream 100 that I'm part of their Dream 100. You know what I mean? And so, you know, we've talked about this a little bit, and this is kind of what Pedro was mentioning, this goes back to that whole spirit of partnership. And regardless of how partnered the relationship really is on paper, coming to the table with the full intention to serve, you know. And So that's what I would say is, you know, when you're looking for people, I don't know that there's set attributes I would look for. I think we're all in different paths, and we're all in different seasons of that path, and our needs and relational needs are going to change depending on the season. But what I would say is, regardless of what it is you're looking for in those people, when you find the people, take the risk. Because I would rather get rejected and know, fuck it, I did my part, you know, and I wasn't well received, right? And you might realize when you do that, and the approach goes sour, you might be like, fuck this guy, you know what, I was wrong, whatever. But like, you'll never know if you don't just go up and shake their hand and say hi and let them know what that meant to you and offer to buy their coffee. And, you know, I mean, sometimes that's just life, right? And I look at that kind of like, you know, it's like, there's that whole, if you could sit on a park bench with somebody famous for an hour, who would you choose? Well, why don't we just create that situation, right? Like, I found him in the line, we had coffee, and we had our own proverbial version of the bench for an hour. You know, it's like, that's not just a euphemism on some cute meme. That's real shit. Make it real, you know? So that, I know that's a really long-winded answer, but I thought it was important to go through all of that. I think creating a Dream 100 is important.
Yeah, I actually took some notes there. I wrote down Dream 100 because I can name probably 3 people that I've had exactly what you're talking about, where you almost get this, like, not sound weird about it, but like butterflies in your stomach, where you're just like, I know that I don't know what it is, but I have to be around this person.
Yeah.
This is a relationship that I personally need in my life. And if I don't at least shoot my shot to be friends with this person, I will regret it for the rest of my life. And I don't know why, but I'm going to walk up to this person, and on a very elementary level, I'm going to ask them, hey, can I be your friend?
Yeah.
And like, you know, it's,
yeah.
But anyway. Yeah.
No, I mean, dude, that's, I mean, let's be honest. If for every 10 stories that somebody went, yeah, I shot my shot, 9 of them are going to be positive. They went well. And not only did it go well, on some level, long-term, if they played their cards right, it was transformative, right? Like, that's the same way it was, like, for me, it was with Dan, like, and it still is, like, we wanted him to consult us on Good Vibe Squad, and we got that. But like, when I was there, I also made it clear that to him that it's like, he's my mentor. Whether he chooses to accept this or not, that's on him. He's my mentor, right? And so, like, I'm taking it all in, right? I'm looking at what books he's reading. I was actually going to show you that, because like, when I was on the airplane, like, this is the level of, like, because like, I think too often we take the pictures, we record the videos, and then we never go back on them, right? So when I was on a flight from Dan Kennedy, I combed through a bunch of the pictures of the stacks of books in his office, and I literally wrote out, I'm not done yet, I'm not halfway done, but I got 3 pages of different books that I got to buy now of just good shit that was on his shelves. And so, you know, it's like, I think that's part of it too, is like actually taking action, not just being an observer, because it's like, it's all too easy in life. I mean, by default, we're in the grandstands, right? And it's like, you have to actually go out of your way if you want to be on the field. Nobody's going to put you on the field. You got to put you on the field, right? If you want to be in the game, if you want to be on the scoreboard, if you want to be the one that they're talking about on the radio, on the TV, it ain't the stands, it's the people on the field, right? And so I think that's anything in life, right? You know, taking the pictures, recording the videos, that's being in the stands. Now, going back and reviewing the photos, reviewing the videos, creating an action plan, actually implementing the things in which you took, that's putting yourself on the field, right? And so I try to take as much of the theoretical as I can and make it practical. I try to take as, you know, and it's easy. I also have an acceptance with myself, because there's been times where this has been, I've struggled to get something from an event. And so my mantra is, if I can leave here with one thing, then it paid for itself. And so when I'm in those moments where I feel like, this is a waste of my fucking time, there's something there. There's something. It ain't a lesson I knew that I thought I needed, but I'm going to get something. Hell or high water, I'm leaving with the lesson, right? I came this far, I ain't leaving empty-handed. And so that mantra's kept me great. I mean, obviously, the last month I've been in an abundance of places where there's a surplus of ideas, But I also go to places where it's like a barren wasteland. I try to stay away from those places, but the mantra still, I came all the way here. I ain't leaving without the lesson, right? So, and the lesson might be, this is the last time I'm around these people. I don't know, but I'm leaving with the lesson, right? So, anyways, hopefully that answers your question. I know it was a lot of, kind of a long-winded.
No, I feel like hopefully you won't edit any of that out, because I feel like it was all really a good nugget. Because that's the reality is this is a tough market. I think it's extremely crucial that we surround ourselves with people who don't play the victim mentality and want to run at a really high caliber. And if you don't already have those people in your inner circle, then that means it's time for you to go out and find them.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, one of the things you've heard me say many times is it's very easy as a broker to start feeling like you're on this island trying to figure things out on your own. And one of the things that I really like about what we have at GBS is there's this community of people that are all trying to better themselves. Like, yeah, we are ultimately buying leads, but ultimately it's bigger than that. It's a community that's trying to do big stuff. So not to plug you guys, but that's that's part of it.
That's our favorite part. That's our favorite part. We love the community. I mean, it's like, I like to think we're the best at what we do. There's an element of subjectivity to that, but like the part I'm most proud about is not our leads. It's not our system. And I'd argue those are very valuable pieces. And sometimes people say those are, the best they've ever had. And I always love hearing that. But like, for me, it's the community. It's, we've played the long game of, and it pisses some people off, but like we disqualify a lot. Like we really do, because I long-term wanted to build a business where when I hopped on a call, all the faces I saw, I was excited to see. And if I don't have that, then I don't want the money. Right? It's like, dude, I could build a business for money. I mean, there's so many things I could do for money if I'm willing to be unhappy to do it, And so my thing was, it's like, now that I'm in control of this, I want good people around me. And so honestly, that's why Good Vibe Squad is what it is I think it's community first and service second. And both of them are, in my opinion, top notch. But to me, the community has always been the part that excites me the most.
Well, since you've got a list of 160 people, man, and I would argue that nobody's probably studied mortgage brokers as much as you, or you're definitely in the running for people who studied mortgage brokers. Who do you think should be good inner circle people for mortgage brokers?
Well, I'll give you an example. Have you been to UWM campus? Okay, so I strongly recommend you do that. Especially as a broker, it's like you can use your points or whatever to get a trip down there. They'll pay for the travel and stuff, but it's profound, first of all, because I think it really exposes the scale of the operation. When you're going through it, first of all, it's never ending. And in addition to that, it actually feels less of a stuffy professional services type place. When you think mortgage, well, not when you think mortgage, but when I think mortgage, I think antiquated, I think outdated, I think lacking innovation, right? Just generally. And this isn't just mortgage, this is real estate, this is insurance. And yes, there's some disruption and stuff, but generally I would say they're about a decade behind. And a lot of that's probably due to regulation, if we're being honest, right? Regulation stifles creativity. I'm not anti-regulation necessarily. I mean, I am pretty libertarian, but I understand the practical application. I think the legislation needs to apply to congressmen who allowed 08 to happen, but that's a discussion for a different day. The brokers were a lot less of the villains than they were marked out to be. Let's just put that one there. But realistically, when you're at UWM, what you end up seeing is it feels like you're at a Facebook or a Google that happens to do mortgage, right? It's a very different vibe, a very different energy. And I mean, depending on what part of the environment you're at, part of it feels like Wolf of Wall Street. Part of it feels like you're at a Facebook, like there's like this hipstery, like and you can tell like you're like, oh, this must be the dev team. Oh, this must be the underwriters. Oh, this must be the account executives. Like you can tell the energy is different. And so that's really cool. I mean, dude, like they've grown to like something like 7,000 or 8,000 team members in that location. Like that's insane. Yeah. I'm like, dude, we're running at 60 people and I'm losing my mind. Dude, what? Like Matt is a gangster. So what I would tell you is just go to UWM, take it in, be a fly on the wall. I think that they have a lot of cool information and stuff there, but realistically, just the walk through it to me spoke tons to how they're trying to invest into brokers. But more specifically, if you get any shot at Matt Ishbia, I would say take it because, and I mean that probably sounded negative. I don't mean to take a shot at him. Don't shoot him. I'm saying if you get a shot to get to know him, he seems really genuine, but more importantly than that, he's a lion. Like he will rip the head off of a competitor. And I just have mad business prowess respect for him. Right. So, that's somebody I would advocate, but not just that. Right. So then you got like EPM, Eddie Perez, Phil Mancuso, Laura Brandeo. The crew at EPM is top notch. The executive crew. They're some of my favorite people in the industry, honestly. Phil Mancuso is hilarious. Really high energy. He's got that East Coast go fuck yourself vibe, which I really love about him. He's really funny. Eddie Perez is a great business leader. Laura Brandeo, really intelligent. She came from, I think, AFR. Just great executive talent there. So I would say get to know the executive crew if you have the shot to at some of these wholesale lenders that you're working with as a broker, because their wealth of information, but also they're just great resources. They want you to win. And it's if you win, they win, and if they win, you win, right? So it's like there's this symbiotic, I guess you could say, host parasite type relationship where you need each other to an extent. So that's nice. So outside of that, I think sales and marketing mentorship, if you're an originator, right? If you're an underwriter, this is obviously less applies, or if you're a processor or something like that. But for originators, I would say sales and marketing mentorship, and if you're gonna do it, find really good mentors that and otherwise find people who you trust to do it for you. I would make the argument that one of the biggest things in my life that helped me succeed was the shift from feeling like money was the most valuable currency I had to the shift where time was the most valuable currency I had. And once that shift was made, I treated the things that I do myself differently, right? Like I can't say my time is valuable and then like detail my car. I actually like doing car work, but there's a certain point where it's like, I like mowing my lawn, but like, what's the cost of me mowing my lawn these days, right? Like I have to actually evaluate the time. Now, if it's something you're just passionate about and you love doing, like, don't let me yuck your yum. But like at the end of the day, if you're like, well, the lawn's got to get mowed, call someone. You got shit to do, right? We're too valuable for that anymore. And so that's kind of the important thing too, is just understanding the importance of your time. So anyways, those are some people. So a marketing and a sales mentor, I would say other mentors or other people that you should have close to you. I'm big on CFOs. If you don't have somebody that's helping you make sense of your money, that's critical. CPA, this is actually a conversation I had recently with our CFO. CPAs help you make sense of the past, and CFOs help you make sense of the future, right? One's not better than the other, but they're different sides of the financial equation. And so that's an important relationship. I think that more people have CPAs than have CFOs. Everyone needs a CPA. Our CFO feels that only people that are doing at least $40,000 a month need a CFO. So, that might be a personal judgment, but I think it's a good indicator, if nothing else. So I think a CFO, a good relationship with a banker, your banker, whoever, if you're growing a business, I've also learned just over the years that while yes, banks have underwriting guidelines, relationship can be that little extra nudge. I'm very grateful for my relationship, both with my personal and my business banker, and a good lawyer. If you don't have a good lawyer, you should have a good lawyer. I think it was Donald Trump that said it, which, by the way, if whether you love him or hate him, he's very instructive of effective business and marketing. The dude just dominates every room he's in, which, you know, is a series of lessons all of its own. But he said a quote, I think it was Donald at least, and it was some version of, if you're not getting sued every few years, you're not really doing anything magical. And I think that that's important, you know, because it's like, dude, if nobody's willing to sue you, if you're not getting ceases and desists, you ain't doing a lot. And so that was something that, like, I was like, well, okay, so if I want to do a lot, which I do, I want to perpetually 10x my life, not, you know, Grant Cardone-ish, but like we've talked about in the past from Ben Hardy. And so it's like, if I want to do that, I have to push the bounds. And if I'm going to push the bounds, I have to be okay with people not liking what I do. And some people will sue me, and that's okay. I'm not trying to hurt people, but I got a life to live. I got business to run, right? So that was, I just felt like a good sense of wisdom as well. And so I have a great counsel for a variety of reasons, because I don't want to be caught with my pants down.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, I had never thought about a CFO before. That's definitely something I probably need to have on my radar at some point.
It's changed our life. You should check out the podcast episode I shot with him. It's I thought it was instructive and informative, but honestly, having a CFO, you know, I make the analogy that it's like flying. It's the difference between flying a plane and getting stuck in the clouds. Having a CFO is like knowing how to read the gauges and having your instrument rating. Not having a CFO is, well, like not knowing how to read the gauges. If you don't have visibility and you don't know how to read the gauges, the likelihood you survive being caught in a storm or even clouds is actually incredibly low, because it's hard to tell when you're in that situation and your brain doesn't have the visual to perceive. Whether you're going up or whether you're going down, your body perceives the momentum, the actual gravitational force, very similarly. And so oftentimes you will miscorrect what you think you need to do to stabilize, which will send you down a spiral. And by the time you have visibility, it's too late to recover, right? And so I've always viewed that for business, like having a CFO, like I don't care whether I have visibility or not, because I can read the gauges, right? So even when it's stormy, even when it's cloudy, even when clarity seems unclear, okay, let's look at the gauges. What do the gauges say? Okay, well, based off the gauges, we should do this, we should do that, right? And so that's been really instructive, because, you know, we always know exactly where the money is going. And if there's deviation, we know before. We're never surprised, right? It's like, we're never caught off guard. And I think that's important. And I don't think it's just important, you know, I mean, I could talk about this part forever, but like, you know, so many people are upset right now about the mortgage industry, but let's be honest. People took for granted 2020 and 2021, right? And that goes into the whole Warren Buffett, you know, you know who's naked when the tide goes out. We're seeing that with mortgage companies. We're seeing that with brokers. We're seeing that with, I mean, everybody. You're seeing who's naked. The tide went out, right? And so there's this element of people act like it's hard. Well, yeah, how long did you think you were going to be in heaven on earth? You shouldn't have had 2020 and 2021 to begin with. You got lucky. Nobody looked at that and went, I need to build a moat before it's too late. A storm is coming, right? And everybody put their little flippy floppies on, and they went, this is great, man. Just loans falling out of the sky. I don't got to do shit. Well, now they're caught in the storm with their flippy floppies on. Right? And so that was what happened to a lot of people. And so to me, a CFO, if people had a CFO, you know, we were, McBee and I were caught winter of 2021 with our pants down, and we took for granted our position. And the market shift, there was a lot of fear in the market. People didn't know what to do, right? This was, we just went from like 2s and 3s to like, we jumped up to like high 4s, and people like, sky's falling, right? First wave of sky is falling. And it's amazing how many times you can live through the sky is falling, by the way. But we had gone through that. And then I remember McBee and I having a heart-to-heart, and we were like, we will never be here again. We will never be in this position. And so we literally started to build the business with the vision of we are in a recession. What do we do? I don't care if we're in a recession. We are in a recession. What do we do? Because if you act as if you're in a recession, that logic will make you thrive in good times. And if you act like you're in a recession when you're in a recession, you will do just fine. But if you act like you're not in a recession when you're not in a recession, when it's good, right? But when it's bad, it's really bad, right? And so that's the difference. So we just live like we're in a recession. I'm not even caught off guard anymore. People are like, we're in a recession. I'm like, I done been in a recession.
Right.
You know? So anyways, one more question for you, bro, before we hop off here. You know, I always like to ask this to kind of keep the educational train moving. What is one book or resource that you've consumed in the last few years, or if it was really profound, maybe early in your life, that you feel like other mortgage professionals or sales professionals, it should be mandatory reading?
Yeah. So, the one that I'm probably most excited about at the moment is one that you recommended a couple days ago. In fact, I got it right here. It's called
Nice.
Big Leap.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like the Big Leap can be particularly helpful for really ultimately anybody, but especially new loan officers who are really looking to establish themselves in the industry to build a really successful career for themselves. You know, a lot of times loan officers, when we first get in, we face a lot of challenges, you know, just trying to figure out the business model and all the admin work and different stuff. So it's important that, you know, you've got a game plan when you get punched in the mouth, you know. Don't be afraid of rejection. Don't be afraid of the stress levels. That's all what it takes to be successful, you know, is to go through kind of those steps. And I feel like this book does a really good job of giving insight into owning those limiting beliefs that you have and figuring out how to harness them in a positive light, and also focus on really channeling the positive energy of wins. That's one of the things that the book talks about, is deflecting, and I do it all the time. And it wasn't until this book that I really realized it. I don't really want to give any spoilers, but there's just a really lot of good content in there that I think is worth diving into further. The other that I think would be important, if you haven't made the shift yet and you're really trying to figure out your place, even just in society in general, and on whether you should be a broker or a loan officer, or, you know, maybe join a team, is I think Rocket Fuel is a phenomenal read. I think that defining who you are in kind of your business model, whether you're a visionary or whether you're
Integrator.
Thank you. Sorry, I don't know why the word was spacing for a second. Is absolutely pivotal in building the business model that you want, because a lot of times, you know, it's easy to think you're one thing and come to find out you're not. You're not those things. And that can be a really costly mistake if you don't own up to what that is in the beginning. So I think that book is a good starting point on grounding yourself a little bit, if that makes sense.
I like that. Yeah, we're actually going through the process. I just hired an EOS implementer the other day, and Tim, our VP of Ops, we're sending him out to Rocket Fuel University. They have a integrator like course mastermind thingy in person that they're doing. So I'm pretty pumped about that, and I think that'll be really fun. And then the cool thing about the Big Leap that I think is instructive even for you is it's almost like you get a series of books when you buy that book, because if you're actually growing, right? I know a lot of people that, like, you know, the common thing I'll hear a lot is, I've been in this industry for 30 years. And really what that is somebody that's lived the same year 30 times, right? And it hasn't been 30 years of growth necessarily. One of the things is, if you're actually living a life of growth, of you're trying to do better every day, every week, every month, every year. And if you pick up the Big Leap every year or two, it feels like a different book than the last time you went through it, because at every new juncture of who you evolve into, there's a variety of different things you will pull from that book. It's fascinating. It's one of the only books I've ever encountered that I feel I could read every few years and justify it.
I love
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So
it's really, it was a really good recommendation. I also noticed that he's got some other books as well. I'm curious, have you read any of the other ones that he's done?
There's another one I feel like I have.
Yeah, I saw on the back cover there was Conscious Living in a Year of Living Consciously.
I got A Year of Living Consciously. I'd have to check. That's in my personal development sections, and I ran out of space, so I've had to start doing this thing where I like stack them up in front. So I've been thinking about how do I want to, I bought more. I inherited my uncle. I didn't know how much he was into philosophy. He actually studied directly under Alan Watts in California, which I thought was fascinating. And so he had all these like books on philosophy. So we had to buy more bookshelves downstairs. And so now I'm like, I still got stacks of books here, stacks of books here. So I'm like, man, I need more bookshelves. This ain't cool. So I got something right here.
I'm going to flip the question on you. I know you've already given us a couple of books, but why don't you give us a book that you feel like would be a good fit to wrap up the call?
The one I'm on right now, and this was the guy that I got to spend an hour in a really intimate setting at the Inner Circle Mastermind of Paradise, is 10x is Easier Than 2x by Benjamin Hardy. 100 pages into it. You can pre-order it now. I think it releases sometime in May. Probably one of the most profound reads I've had in the last few years, from a self-development standpoint, because it really simplifies a lot of otherwise complex concepts. And it like I was telling you about that concept of condensing decades into days. I feel like that's a book that does that, right? And it's a resource that if you're not 100% happy with where you're at and you're like, man, I feel like I could be doing more, I could be doing better, I think that you would be really hard pressed not to massively grow through going like if you didn't grow after reading it, you didn't read it, right? Like that's really where it's at. It's just so, and maybe it's just where we're at in the journey, where it was, right message, right time. I'm not sure, but it really hit so much differently than a lot of other books. Now I've read some of their other work, like Gap and the Gain. I've perused through Who Not How. So I was already a fan of his work, but this one just hit even more differently. Like Gap in the Gain was great, but 10x is Easier Than 2x. My God, it's just such a phenomenal read.
I'm adding it to my Amazon cart.
Legit, and I mean this wholeheartedly. If they charged $997, and I mean $997, I would still recommend it as a book you should read.
Well, Amazon has it for $23.39.
There you go. Benjamin, raise your prices, baby. Awesome. Well, Austin, it's been a pleasure having you on the Lendsetter Show. Where can listeners, if they want to connect with you, just talk about being a broker and what that's like, and if they just enjoyed the conversation and want to get to know you some, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, man. So I would say social media platforms are a massive channel for us. At Skyway Financial is our Instagram handle. Skywayfinancial.com, is our website. Facebook, you can find us there as well. I don't know if we're giving out personal phone numbers. You're more than welcome.
If you can do Facebook, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, call me on my cell too if you want. 615-589-3999.
Call me on my cell phone.
That's right. That hotline bling, baby.
That's great. Awesome. Well, Austin, it's been a pleasure having you on. I'll make sure I drop those links and stuff down in the descriptions. And thanks again for tuning in to the Lendsetter Show, guys.